Doron Akintola of Oyo State High Court, Ibadan. Under intense security as journalists were barred from covering the proceedings. Justice Akintola adjourned the hearing of the motion on notice filed by Folahon Malomo Adelabi against the party, its acting national chairman, and others to Wednesday, November 12, 2025. However, after listening to the submissions of counsel from both sides, Justice Akintola urged all parties to file and exchange their processes to enable the substantive hearing of the case to commence effectively. The president of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, Professor Chris Piewuna, says the federal government does not prioritize education since its officials do not consider the sector's problems as national concerns requiring collective responsibility. Piewuna, who spoke during an interview, said the indifference of key government officials towards the education sector has made it difficult to achieve sustainable reforms. He alleged that members of the Federal Executive Council often view education-related challenges as the sole responsibility of Minister of Education. President of the Medical and Dental Consultants of Nigeria, Professor Apollos Ndukuba, has raised the alarm over the growing workload of consultants in public hospitals following the ongoing indefinite strike by members of the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors, saying they are already overwhelmed. Speaking in an interview, Ndukuba said consultants across various hospitals are struggling to keep basic health services running amidst the industrial action by resident doctors. He emphasized that effective healthcare delivery depends on teamwork, urging government to resolve the impasse swiftly. The National Hajj Commission of Nigeria, NACON, has announced a downward review of the Hajj fare for the 2026 pilgrimage. A statement by the commissions noted that the new announcement takes immediate effect following the directive of Vice President Kashim Shettima. The statement further stated that the revised figure would see 792,943,000.83 naira reduced from the initial Hajj fare depending on the pilgrim's departure zone. The federal government says it is intensifying efforts to strengthen Nigeria's primary healthcare system and reduce the country's high disease burden. We'll take a quick break now on the news. The rest will return shortly. Please do stay with us. Well, thank you so very much for staying with us here on the News Express. Let's return to our earlier story now. The federal government says it is intensifying efforts to strengthen Nigeria's primary healthcare system and reduce the country's high disease burden. This was the focus of discussions at the 6th Annual Legislative Summit on Health held in Abuja. Health correspondent Zerao Nasiru now reports.
Stakeholders across Nigeria's health sector converged in Abuja to chart a new course for revitalizing the country's primary healthcare system, a key step toward achieving universal health coverage. Delivering the keynote address, Dr. Kabiru Atta expressed concern that only 4% of primary healthcare workers are fully active, as many Nigerians continue to bypass local facilities. He emphasized the need to make primary health centers the first point of medical contact, especially during emergencies.
I realized that the woman with fistula requires several services. She requires social rehabilitation, medical rehabilitation, and then back to the community, nutrition services, physiotherapy services. But at no point in time could you know where that woman was and what services she needed. And that is why we decided to work with the Federal Ministry of Health to set up what we call a fistula tracker system.
Also speaking, Chika Ofo of the Vaccine Network for Disease Control disclosed that Only 25% of vaccination funds for 2024 were released, a shortfall. She undermines the delivery of essential health services.
So for Nigeria, in my experience, I've come to realize that to budget is very easy. So if you say you want to budget that vaccines funding or health funding should be 1 trillion, very easy. The problem is in the release.
Participants at the summit called for increased funding, improved staffing, and stronger legislative backing to reposition Nigeria's primary health care system as the foundation of effective health delivery. Experts say Nigeria's journey toward a healthier population depends on sustained investment and political will to make primary health care accessible and reliable for all citizens. Zahra Nasser, reporting for Global TV News.
Thank you so very much, Ziral. The federal government has assured residents and foreign nationals of ongoing efforts to improve security across Nigeria, following a fresh travel warning issued by the United Kingdom. Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, said the government is keenly aware of the security challenges in parts of the country and is making efforts to address them and make them part of the country safe for citizens and foreigners alike. The minister noted that President Bola Tinubu had recently restructured top security personnel, increasing investments in military hardware and intelligence operations. Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, has granted defaulters of the Land Use Purpose Clause of properties in Asokoro, Maitama, Garki, and Wuse districts in the Federal Capital City a final grace period of 14 days to comply with the terms and conditions of the approval for land use change and conversion. In a statement for the Senior Special Assistant to the Minister of Public Communications and Social Media, Lere Olayinka, the defaulters now have 14 days from Tuesday, November 11, 2025, to pay a violation fee of 5 million naira and other applicable fees for land use change and conversion. The minister also said failure to comply within the stated 14-day window grace period will result in enforcement actions by the FCT administration. The federal government says it has approved 3 transformative policies: the rewards and recognition policy, the incentive and consequence management policy, and the civil service monitoring policy to boost productivity and enhance service delivery. The strategic approval was granted during the Federal Executive Council meeting, presided over by President Bola Tinubu, in a landmark decision of fundamentally to reshape the federal civil service. This landmark development, the federal government says, heralds a new era of performance-driven governance, strategic talent development, and enhanced accountability, designed to work in synergy to motivate staff, instill a culture of excellence, and significantly improve service delivery to the Nigerian people. The National Youth Service Corps, NYSC, says it has commenced the physical verification of credentials and travel documents for foreign-trained Nigerian graduates who registered for the 2025 Batch C service year. In a statement titled Notification of Physical Verification of Credentials and Travel Documents of Foreign-Trained Graduates for the 2025 Batch C service year issued by the NYSC management, the exercise is meant for prospective corps members whose documents are yet to be physically verified after completing their online registration. The agency noted that it will hold from Monday, November 10 to Wednesday, November 12, 2025, across designated centers nationwide. This is Global Television. You're watching the live broadcasts of News Express. When the news returns, we'll have more stories cutting across business, foreign, and sports segments for you. Please do stay with us. Thank you so very much for staying with us. The second part of this news broadcast now returns to business. The federal government has announced plans to make the long-awaited National Housing Data Center fully operational by December. This was disclosed in a statement stating that the move is aimed at transforming Nigeria's housing and real estate policy landscape through credible evidence-based data. Led by the Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, the initiative unites public and private stakeholders to standardize housing data, monitor deficit reduction efforts, and guide policy and investment decisions. The federal government has announced plans to introduce 2 new investment funds under its Investment in Digital and Creative Enterprises program to boost Nigeria's technology and creative sectors in 2026. In a statement issued by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Communications, Office of the Vice President, Stanley Onkwocha, the funds will target strategic investments in startups across the country as part of efforts to drive innovation and youth empowerment. Onkwocha further stated that the announcement followed a milestone in the iDice initiative as Vice President Kashif Shettima, who chairs the program's steering committee, had confirmed the formal commencement of investments through an anchor venture fund managed by Ventures Platform, a pan-African seed-stage investment firm. For several years, traders from northern Nigeria have journeyed southward to buy timber and other building materials. However, with the rising cost of living and inflation, the business has taken a hard hit, especially at the timber market at Neibawa area in Kano State. Global television correspondent Idris Jibrin now takes a look at this development.
For over 2 decades, Alhaji Umar Abdul Mumin has made regular trips from Kano to Calabar across River State, buying timber in commercial quantity. His business has supported his family and supplied small traders in the region. This trade is everything to me. I can only give thanks to God. I started this business from childhood. Today I am married. I have children. I was able to own a house, all with this trade. The rising cost of transportation is, however, eating deep into profits. Traders like Sanusi Adamu says prices have skyrocketed, making it difficult to sustain the business.
One cannot say this is the specific factor that causes the hiking of the materials, wooden materials or building materials, especially from the south states. A trailer is being costed up to 5 million from there down to here, Kano. You know, their own setting is not like ours. They have so many revenues. Even the rascals can even just set off their own gate and say that you must pay before you pass. That is why the wood is costlier.
Despite these challenges, the trade still supports hundreds of small-scale traders and youth in northern Nigeria. Without urgent intervention, many fear the losses will continue to rise.
If government wants this wood to go down, it has so many policies. It can go there, it is from, we used to bought it from companies. When governments introduce some policies there, which will enrich the companies, it will help us also.
Unless transportation costs drop and small businesses receive the support they need, timber traders may struggle to survive. From Kano, Idris Jibrin, Global Television News.
Oh, thank you so very much, Idris. Nigeria is taking another bold step toward food security and agricultural expansion. This follows the signing of a memorandum of understanding by the National Agricultural Land Development Authority aimed at boosting cassava production and managing the Renewed Hope mega farm estates in Ekiti State. Our correspondent, Anietia Patrick, reports that the partnership is geared towards strengthening Nigeria's position in the global cassava market.
At a brief ceremony in Abuja, the National Agricultural Land Development Authority formalized a partnership with Agbeyewa Farms that will open up 5,000 hectares of farmland for large-scale cassava cultivation in Ekiti, Delta, and Kwara states. NALDA's Executive Secretary, Colinus Adebayo, said the initiative aligns with President Bola Tinubu's Renewed Hope agenda for agricultural transformation and rural prosperity. He added that the partnership will create thousands of jobs and promote youth participation through in-grower and cluster farming systems.
Per hectare is reducing. Nigeria is a country blessed with vast land resources. We are increasing, now that is increasing access to land, thereby increasing the per hectare access for each farmer. So while the price of cassava is dropping, this is good for our food cost. This is also good for our production cost, so that when we produce the derivatives, we can compete globally in the international market.
The executive secretary commended the federal government's economic policies for boosting investor confidence, revealing that 6 new international investors have indicated interest in similar agricultural projects.
We're not only producing or cultivating for our own processing plant, but we're also cultivating for other processing plants in Nigeria, so that cassava starch will be made available. HQCF will be made available to feed the nation, because we are also dwelling in the dream of Mr. President to totally eradicate poverty in Nigeria and to also curb food insecurity in Nigeria.
With Nigeria leading global cassava production by earning little from exports, the partnership could mark a turning point in transforming rural economies and adding value to one of Nigeria's most abundant crops. Anieti Patrick, reporting for Global TV News.
Let's turn to the foreign scene now. Angola will be celebrating the 50th anniversary of its independence from Portugal tomorrow, following its declaration of sovereignty on 11 November 1975 at the end of a 13-year war. The event took place in dramatic circumstances, with the nationalist forces of the People's Movement for the Liberation of Angola and the National Union for the Total Independence of Angola engaging in a civil war that lasted close to 3 decades. Commemorations of the independence anniversary have been ongoing throughout the year, but beyond the celebrations of this historic milestone, many Angolans still face significant national, social, economic struggles. In the meantime, Angola and Nigeria have expressed readiness to strengthen their bilateral relations, as well as be at the forefront of regional multilateral cooperation. This was disclosed at the Angola's 50th independence anniversary celebrations in Abuja. The event, with the theme Pieces of Angola's History Told by the Protagonists, brought together diplomats, scholars, business leaders, and veterans to celebrate half a century of independence and friendship between Angola and Nigeria, as Foreign Affairs Minister Yusuf Tugar reiterated Nigeria's commitment to strengthening relations with Angola. Away from Africa now, senators in the United States have voted to move forward with a stopgap funding package aimed at ending the longest government shutdown in the U.S.'s history. In a procedural vote, 8 Democrats broke rank and voted in favor of advancing the Republican measure, which will keep the government open until January 30. The bill would also fund some parts of the government, including food aid and the legislative branch, for the next year. And now to sports. The President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, has renewed calls for a return to grassroots football development, warning that Nigeria's football future could remain bleak unless concerted efforts are made to discover and groom young talents across the country. Akpabio made the remarks in Abuja at the commencement of the 2nd edition of the Senate President's Under-18 Unity Cup, a youth football tournament instituted. The competition, which kicked off at the Old Parade Ground in Gariki, has attracted 21 teams, including 16 male and 5 female squads drawn from different parts of the country. The spirits of unity, competition, and excellence came alive in Jos as the 27th Nigerian University Games in Nuga officially kicked off with thrilling opening matches across multiple sporting The University of Jos played host to a colorful display of talents and determination as athletes from across the nation began their quest for gold. Global TV sports correspondent Samuel Odi, who is following the games for us, now takes it from here.
The air around the University of Jos Sports Complex was electric as the first whistle signaled the start of the much-anticipated NOGA 2025 games. Students, fans, and dignitaries gathered in excitement as match unfolds simultaneously across the venues, each showcasing the strength and unity that defines Nigerian university sports. In handball, Team Lasso battled fiercely against Federal University Mina in the opening match that kept the crowd on its feet from start to finish. Over at the indoor sport hall, the basketball court saw fast-paced action as the University of Jos took on University of Benue in a well-contested encounter, while the football arena echoed with cheers. Speaking at the official opening of the games, the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Jos, Professor Tanko Isia, expressed his pride in hosting the nation's finest young athletes and reaffirmed the institution's commitment to sports development. Today's event also drew admiration from participants and fans alike, who described the atmosphere as charged with energy and purpose. Many hailed the organization and facilities provided by the host universities as top-notch. Athletes across disciplines showed skills, resilience, and passion as they varied for early victories. From track events to court games, the message was clear: NOGA 2025 is set to be one of the most competitive editions yet. As the games continues through the week, all eyes remain on the medal table and the emerging stars destined to make their mark on Nigerian sporting future. With the University of Jos setting the pace for an unforgettable week of sporting excellence, the 27th NOGA Games promises not to just be a competition but also a celebration of youthful engagement and unity among national pride. Samuel Odi for Global Television News.
Thank you, Odi. The Nigeria Premier Football League has handed Katsina United a total fine of 9 million naira and ordered them to play all remaining home games behind closed doors in Jos, following incidents of violence during their 1-1 draw with Barao FC. In a statement, the league body charged Katsina United with multiple breaches of its framework and rules, including failure to provide adequate security and control their supporters. Let's now end Global TV News Express with a look at some of our big stories. The hearing of the case challenging the People's Democratic Party, PDP's planned national convention, was adjourned again by Justice Ladiran Akintola of Oyo State High Court.